This librarian and an 8th grade class from a school in Fresno read this book, The Outsiders, and on a whim wrote a letter to Francis Ford Coppola and said, "We think you should make this film."
And they told me that The Outsiders, a book I'd never heard of, was one of their favorite books, and asked me if I would consider to make it. And it was signed by every kid in the class, and I was so touched to get a letter signed by, 30 kids with their little handwriting, so clearly, 13-year-olds, that I said, well, I have to read this book because they asked me to, and I pretty much have a rule to do anything that kids ask me to do. And I read the book, and I remember thinking, well, definitely we should do this.
First time I met Francis, I was really nervous about it. It was at a big casting call for The Outsiders here in Tulsa. So I went down there, and as I was walking down the hallway toward him, I saw him waiting for me, and I realized he was a little nervous too. And when I went up to him, I said, "Mr. Coppola, I've got a really big problem with you doing this movie." And he got kind of defensive, and he said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, The Godfather was better than the book, and The Black Stallion was better than the book. Are you gonna let that happen to me?" And he just laughed, and we got along great ever since.
Francis got an old school that we set up our production offices in it. It had like a little theater at one end, and then it had a shop at the other end. And Francis' office was in a schoolroom. It was really good because you bring all your equipment, all your trucks from Los Angeles, and you create a movie studio.
John, come on, John, don't die.
Francis likes to do a lot of rehearsals, and I remember we did a lot of improvisation, a lot of ad-lib, and he was working with video and shooting scenes from the film on video.
If you're tough like me, nothing can touch you. Nothing.
We went out on the streets of Tulsa and go to a drugstore, and we'd shoplift, and we'd do all this stuff, and we'd get in trouble, and Francis was there the whole time filming it.
The fuzz won't be looking for you here.
Videotape was a very new thing. He had a computerized bus that he and his son, Giancarlo, were able to edit on the fly all the scenes that we were shooting. And essentially, we went, about 3 or 4 weeks ahead of schedule to Tulsa and went to all the locations that we would be filming on, and we shot the film on videotape.
Francis had us do a lot of really, really interesting things. Among them was sleeping in the Curtis house, which was, not in a great part of the neighborhood, and I don't remember it having heat. He wanted us to cook a meal together, and I don't cook. Tommy Howell doesn't cook, and Swayze doesn't cook, so that was a disaster. And he and Susie Hinton sat on that couch, and we were in character for hours and hours and hours on end. And finally, we were sort of looking at each other, the actors going, is this ever going to end? And I think it finally ended when Swayze pulled out the guitar and we started doing Bruce Springsteen songs. I think at that point, Francis had enough.
Little bro was two-timing me again when I was in jail, man.
Francis was eager for me to spend the night in jail, which I wasn't, of course, so interested in doing. But maybe Dallas, because he's been in the reformatory. You should go spend the night in jail. I was like, okay, Francis, why don't you go spend the night in jail?
He would get down in the dirt with us and get dirty and lay down and say, "This is how I want you to lay." And he'd lay there for a while.
Rehearsals and working scenes and discussing things was very much a part of The Outsiders. I mean, I spent time in character, sleeping out at night in the cold, wrapped in newspaper.
Apart from just being blown away from the technical aspect of us working in front of what was called the blue screen at that time, and walking on a piece of blue tarp that would then turn into a park or wherever we were, the best part that came out of that was the fact that we were able to draw upon personal experiences with each other as actors. And then when we would refer to moments on film, we could recall that experience for real.
Francis taught me the technique of building a character with props, with wardrobe, with body language.
I believe you should work very sensually with actors. Actors like it in the early stages of rehearsal. Usually I have a whole table full of props because they just want to go up and get something and hold it while they're talking. And then I say, we'll go out and buy a coat, or rent a coat or something. And I find that as they begin to have some real tangible stuff, they start changing and you start seeing an angle. And then when you see it, if you like it, you encourage it.
Oh, the fire is on. Everyone watch out, the kids are in there. Action. Over here, look at me, guys. All the fires, the whole church is gonna break down. Watch out, here it comes. Oh! Everybody need a ladybug? I do. Once upon a time, there was a ladybug.
His direction was always on the outside of what he actually wanted you to do. He'd say, this is one of those scenes where you're nervous, so it's like you really have to go to the bathroom. You'd go to the bathroom. I get it.
I expected that in every film I've ever done, and often the case is basically you meet the actor on the day, you bang out the scene, he's out of there, and you know you're off location, and you're basically making it up as they're lighting it. The Outsiders was not like that. I mean, we were all grouped together, sort of, you know, in the rehearsal process, ready to put on the show.
There would be scheduled sort of gaming and competition between the Socs and the Greasers. Every weekend we would have these rival matches, be it football, soccer, basketball.
There was a lot of competition. We wouldn't dare compete for Francis' attention. I mean, honestly, Francis was untouchable. But amongst ourselves.
And I remember one afternoon we were going to play a flag football match. The doorbell rang and somebody was standing there with some brand new sweats, drawstring gray sweats with canvas Converse and a t-shirt that said Greasers on it. And they handed me a really lovely plastic binder for my script. And it had The Outsiders and my name on it. I thought, that's fantastic. So we all scramble off to the park and we go up and we've got our gray sweats and our t-shirts on and we look over and here come the gang of Socs, all in their beautifully colored button-down snap sweat jumpsuits and their leather high-top sneakers and their leather-bound script covers with their names on them. And I remember that just eating at us, and we kicked the holy hell out of them that day.
Yeah, Hal, all right!
It was great. That's what you want from young bucks.
I think all the guys that were in the gang were staying on one floor, the Greasers, right?
They were in the rooms on the 18th floor. We were down in the rooms on the 4th floor.
Me being a Soc and him being a Greaser can relate to this very much so because the Greasers got less per diem than the Socs and got better. The Socs got better hotel rooms. That's hardly the case. Yeah, right. Okay. But it was exactly like that, and he's a young boy and he's still learning. We used to have rumbles in the hotel lobby of the hotel, and there was a fountain in the hotel. There was one time we had a huge rumble where people were being thrown in the fountain and stuff like that. It was very classic. But it was good. It was healthy. It was very healthy to exercise that ability. Me and Leif Garrett are good friends today. Really? I love this kid.
No. Speed.
There were times when it got almost a little over the top. Like it was like, hey, whoa, you know, you guys really are actors. You don't hate each other.
We spent like 3 nights shooting that scene, and I got deathly ill. So it wasn't the actual dunking that was rough. It was building up to it. I mean, there was some grabbing and a bit of a fight going on and struggling, and Francis didn't want it to look easy. He wanted us to look like we were getting away, and I didn't make it easy on Leif. You know, I mean, I tried very hard, and Francis came up to me and said, do not let him put you in that water, period. My struggling consisted of a few blows to Leif here and there, but they got me in, and in the long run, you know, they dunked me pretty good, and Leif got even with me.
We knew that we had a lot of nights. We knew it was going to be very cold. We have this scene where we have a fight.
Now, I'd like to say a few words about the Rumble tonight. What's going on?
We started out shooting the fight by the campfire. Francis chose a campfire because it could keep the kids warm. Halfway through the evening, it started to rain. So you had 2 choices. You either quit filming or you pretend like there's been a clap of lightning and thunder and there's been this huge apocalyptic thing happening and the fight begins. So that's exactly what Francis did, was that he just put in a flash of lightning and thunder on the track at the first punch, and then you had all the rain. It rained for a while, and then we had to go to extra rain that we had from Rain Tower. These poor kids, it was so cold. When we would turn off the rain machines, you could just see the steam coming off of Tom and Patrick and all those kids. We had this scene where the church is burning down, and one of the shots is a beam falls on the back of Ralph Macchio. And you really can't put a flaming beam onto an actor because it's going to hurt them. So there is a theatrical trick that's called Pepper's Ghost, which is a 45-degree angle piece of glass that will reflect an element on one side, and you can shoot through the glass so it looks like it's superimposed on the glass. So we had these two beams that came down. One was black that actually hit Ralph. The other one was a beam that had flames on it. And when it came down, it looked as though there was a burning beam actually hitting him, and he was perfectly safe. Because sunsets only last a very, very short time, we shot a long shot of the boys walking up the hill and staying in position and then walking off the hill.
Golly, that was sure pretty, huh?
We had a second camera that shot the sunset at the same time.
It's like the mist is what's pretty, you know? All gold and silver.
Then we took that film and we had a big building at the fairgrounds in Tulsa, and we projected it on a screen behind them and we put them in front of it. And then that barbed wire stuff we had in the foreground too, so it ties the two locations together so you feel like you're in the same place. And it's impossible to shoot a scene this long with all this coverage if you don't do it this way, because the sunset is just too short. It looks more like what I would consider to be a 50s CinemaScope picture like Rebel Without a Cause or East of Eden or something like that. You're trying to do a stylistic thing that's evocative of movies of that time, but against a realistic background, so you have those two things kind of contrasting each other. Francis wanted this to be a big epic picture, so we did it in the anamorphic format, which is known as CinemaScope or sometimes as Panavision, which means it's roughly 2.5 times wider than it is tall. It gives you a lot of compositional space.
And then don't so much as stick your noses out the door. Am I clear?
And it's very, very good for situations when you're in a lot of small rooms. We had an ensemble cast. You want the cast together. You want them playing the scene together. You don't want a lot of cuts. There are several shots where we wanted to carry the focus all the way across the frame. There's a sequence in the burn ward. It was in a real hospital. The room we had was physically very, very small. This is one of those situations where you go, holy smoke, you want to see everybody's face, but you have one person who's face down, these other two people standing over the top of him. You know that you've got to see Ralph's face, you've got to see Ralph looking at them, you've got to see the kids looking at him, and you have to see what his physical condition is.
Got your picture in the paper here for being a hero.
And I realized that the best angle would be this low angle. And this is where CinemaScope was just fabulous, because you could put Ralph in the foreground, and then you had this kind of like wire form of pipes around, and in those holes in the pipes you could compositionally put the other people in.
Stay cool.
There are several shots where we wanted to carry the focus all the way across the frame, where you would have a close-up in one side of the frame and kind of a long shot in the other.
What happened to other guys? Huh?
After the Soch has been killed at the fountain, you see all of Ralph Macchio's coverage, and you see him sharp, but we also wanted to see the body sharp, like the body is always haunting him. Well, the only way that you can do that is to put what is called a split field diopter, and it's just like bifocals, only the bifocal is turned vertically.
Stay gold. Holy boy.
I feel like I really owe my career to that project on a big level. I'm amazed at how many people have recognized the work and the cast and the story and the quality that came out of that.
I've been working for Francis for 24 years, and in that time, I've opened up a lot of mail. I'm holding here in my lap a stack of hundreds of letters that Francis Coppola has received since 1983, when The Outsiders first came out. It's really unprecedented in filmmaking that you would have this continual response after so many years of asking the same question, that people love the film, but they wish it was a little more like the book.
The film had a very elaborate introduction of all the characters that introduces the boys and also sets up the conflict between the greasers and the Socs by virtue of the way the Socs brutalized Pony Boy, who was a young kid brother.
Pull a blade on you?
Then I thought, with the pressure I was getting from Warner Brothers to try to make the film more effective with the audience, I thought maybe instead of doing that, I could just cut that off and get right to the introduction of Dallas and the boys and start the movie with them walking through town and give up that elaborate introduction. And that's what I did.
The force of these letters really started having an effect on Francis, and thinking, why couldn't he put the scenes back that were shot but never included in the film?
I got a letter from Francis explaining that they, did some work on the film, plugged in a lot of the scenes that were missing, more of the complete novel. And he said we're trying to pull together to bring the cast up to Napa and view the new cut version of The Outsiders.
We were picked up in Los Angeles in a private jet.
It was a trip. It felt like yesterday and 20 years ago at the same time.
We haven't changed a day.
Yes, aren't we just as young as we are?
Don't.
Francis explained that he runs into people all the time that would say, what happened to this scene? And this was one of my favorite scenes in the book. And ironically, I had that all the time as well.
But this is what we did. The actors, we sit, we have little lunches, and this is what I always wanted. No pressure, no money. Well, it only was made possible because I got lucky with the resorts and the wine company. Otherwise, I'd be doing
What's going on with the resorts?
They're very successful.
Yeah.
I'd be doing movies of the week,
like me. Don't say it like that. I treated him like I treated everybody else, with at the time was a bit sort of cocky and sassy and honest, Someone's got to do them, and we can't all be Francis Ford Coppola.
We can all have a vineyard.
I wasn't intimidated by his work because I didn't know of his work. And I know he liked that a lot. Wow, this was your car.
What happened to it? It hasn't been maintained.
We went out for the little nostalgic walk and wound up discovering the Mustang that is the Socs Mustang in the film. They were the outsider cars. It was a trip. I mean, it's 20 years later.
What did they do? It's been attacked. Look at this car. I mean, what 17-year-old Brad is allowed to drive this car? I have been maintained better than this car.
There's no doubt
hello.
that. It goes without saying with Francis. It has to end with a great meal and everybody, getting together, drinking wine and talking about the old days and just enjoying just some human time. We did that every Friday when we shot.
You guys hungry, you think? What I'm after is for everyone to feel so comfortable in such a relaxed mood that they'll throw out things that they might withhold.
Drinking great wine, getting to resurrect old friendships, eating strawberries.
Somebody told a crew member looked at foods for the talent. And then,
it was Ron Colby.
And then Leif went over to the table, and Ralph said, "Hey, Leif, that's for the talent." And that's when they snapped the photo. That's what the poster is.
Oh, my Lord. I remember.
He said, leave that food, it's for the talent.
Matt's my favorite in the movie. I love what he's just so out there.
He went for it.
I get you a hangout, a hideout, a hangout.
That was
igloo. I find you a teepee, a tent, a fort. I got you a fort.
Do you have any idea probably how most of us that were in that movie, how long we waited to find anybody that came? You screwed us all up. How long we waited to find anybody that came anywhere close to you. After you, everybody in my life was a bozo.
Really? The main thing of directing is you're sort of like the ringmaster. and you try to lay out all, you know, man, you put the strawberries there because maybe, you know, like that famous scene in, I was telling them today, the famous scene in The Godfather where Marlon is there with the cat. The cat was their studio cat. I just picked it up and put it in his hand on the second take. So you're like just constantly offering options.
And we went and we watched the film.
Hey, everybody. I'm not sitting in that chair. Oh, wow. The Soches.
Well, at least you got the front
Forever greaser.
So you're gonna see the new cut of the movie. Basically, the new cut is like the long cut.
And what's that thing on Ponyboy's neck? It's the question I always got when they cut out
Oh,
the
because-
Well, now they're gonna know.
Now they're gonna know. They're gonna see
So
that knife
so
use.
originally the concept was it was a kind of a kid's Gone with the Wind.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad correctly wrote a kind of Gone with the Wind score, but I always felt somehow that it was a barrier.
It was a bit epic.
Yeah, that the movie, they were like, you know, intimate with one another. And I said, well, maybe it should be more the music that they listen to rather than
Right.
the music that is imposed as a Hollywood score.
The biggest shock was the way the movie opened, because the whole first reel,
When I stepped
in
out.
essence, was not there.
Wait a minute, is that Elvis?
This is all new stuff, man.
From the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind.
It's nice to have those questions answered. Specifically from a selfish Johnny point of view, you learn a little bit why he doesn't go home and what's happening at his house. Just in little snippets.
Going home, Johnny K?
He basically has no place to go and he just kicks a can.
I don't know.
And then just, you know, looking for a place to belong.
It's a lot of work that I did as a very young actor, very inexperienced, so many years ago, and the great body of my work was cut out of the movie. So I was left for years wondering why.
Pull a blade on you?
And it was really great to see it and to see that the scenes work
Ain't gonna hurt you no more.
and that the performances are all strong. I really liked what I saw, and so it's been a great sense of relief.
I work in the morning.
The long sequence between Pony Boy and his brother Soda Pop in bed for quite a long time, talking as brothers would do. You know, they were both really attractive boys, and we, you know, there would be some snickers occasionally of this long scene. Rob Lowe especially was a very, very handsome, if not an androgynous kind of look.
Call Pony. A little.
And they're all walking around in this movie in their underwear, which was part of what boys living together would be. And we reacted as sometimes you do when you're in a preview situation. Well, let's just cut the stuff out.
Jerry yells at you like that. You don't mean nothing.
I find it really moving. I don't know if it's because I'm a father now, and I have two sons of my own, but when I watch the scene, it's very emotional and moving for me.
He loves you a lot.
Sure.
Sort of a running gag between the rest of us and Rob, because a lot of Rob's stuff got cut out, you know, and obviously it wasn't because Rob was a bad actor or anything, but we used to tease him about that. But there's a particular scene at the park where Rob's character, Soda Pop, sort of breaks down and he runs off, and we tackle him in the park, and there's these three brothers, the Curtis brothers, who kind of break down together and listen to what Rob has to say about who we are and what we're trying to do as a family. And that scene got cut out. It was really a moving scene, and it just kind of made sense to have his character have a voice about what we were going through, and that was missing in the film, yet it was so prominent in the book.
It was amazing to see those new scenes because so much of the story of the brothers was lost in the original movie, and I really always thought that The Outsiders at its core was a story about brothers. To see that back, it's truer to what we did.
He meant you're gold when you're a kid, like green. When you're a kid, everything's new. Dawn.
Ralph, you killed that. Oh, killed that. That was just unbelievable, man.
It was a nostalgic ride, you know.
I feel we're gonna have to jump you after this.
the beginning and the end of the film, the balance of the bookends really helps all the characters.
I remember moments that I shared with Diane Lane after seeing the movie that I never really remembered before. She would recall things that I'd said to her, and of course I would deny them because, you know, at 14 I had the biggest crush you could have on a young girl, and I never wanted her to know that, but I'm sure she did.
It's really quite wonderful because the reason for making the film in the first place was a letter from young people. And now these letters over the last 23 years have added up to another version of the film.
My granddaughter, Giancarla, invited me once to her school where the kids had read the book, and I brought a version. It wasn't really out, but I brought the version that I had reconstructed with everything put back, because I wanted them to see as it was when it really told the entire story as the novel does. And that's partly the impetus for my wanting to show it that way now.